This is a patient with a Symfony lens. The lens is being replaced for a higher power Symfony toric lens as the patient has hyperopic astigmatism in this eye. Here we're reopening the bag with first dispersive and then cohesive viscoelastic. There are significant adhesions between the anterior and the posterior capsule here just beyond the optic, and we're trying to dissect those open. We're now going to come from the other side with the viscoelastic, and on this side there's less adhesions and the bag opens very easily. We're now going to bring the lens up out of the capsule bag, and we're going to free up this haptic from the tunnel that the haptic is encased within. So we back that out of the tunnel and it comes out nicely. We're then able to free up the other haptic and bring it up into the anterior chamber. And once the lens is in this position, we can center it and very easily cut it in half and remove it in two pieces. Here we're using an MST micro forceps to hold the lens and a Packer-Chang scissor to cut it. And now we'll remove both halves one by one through the 2.75 millimeter incision. We're now going to inspect this tunnel that encased the temporal haptic, and we can see that there's some fibrosis remaining between the anterior and posterior capsule. And this tunnel of fibrosis is going to most likely inhibit our ability to rotate the lens into proper position, which is where the blue marks are at 180 degrees. So I've tried to reopen the tunnel with dispersive viscoelastic on a LASIK cannula, but I'm not really able to dissect this open, and I don't want to tear the capsular bag. So I'm going to put the lens in and work on this later. So here we're going to put the lens in, and the pupil is starting to come down a bit, but we're going to inject this right into the capsular bag, and this is a higher power Toric Symfony lens, and the haptics are going to need to be placed so that the hatch marks are where the blue marks have been placed. And here we're rotating the lens, and I want to inspect here to make sure that I'm under the anterior capsule and that the lens is in the proper position as I'm rotating. And when I get to this point, right about here, the haptic is going to hit the fibrotic tunnel between the anterior and posterior capsule, and that's going to inhibit it from rotating it further. And when I try to rotate it further, it's going to displace the lens nasally away from me. So the question is what to do, because this is the axis we need to put the lens on. And here you can see I'm inspecting and seeing that the lens is being pushed over, the haptic is being pushed by the fibrotic tunnel. So what I'm going to do is advance the haptic beyond this fibrotic tunnel and then back it into the tunnel counterclockwise with the toe of the haptic going in first, just the way we took the other lens out. And this way we can guide the haptic into the tunnel that we removed the other lens from without having to break this band of fibrosis. And now the lens centers perfectly. We can remove the viscoelastic, and the lens is in perfect position without having to dissect that fibrosis between the anterior and posterior capsule away. Thank you for your attention.